Hey, so something that's really common, and I'm glad I had the idea to actually get it on video today. And the reason I got it on video was that I wanted the client that I was working with to see what I was talking about. We were working on his deadlift. Obviously, for me, when it comes to squat, bench, deadlift, they're my bread and butter. I can look at somebody's lift for one rep, and I know that where there's mobility issues. I know where their stance is off. I mean, it's just there. I've been watching people move barbells like that since I was 15. All right. So what you're gonna see in this video is that first rep. And the question I asked him after he did his first set was, I'm gonna guess your first rep of every set of deadlifts that you do always feels the funkiest and most weak. And then you kind of hit your rhythm after the second rep, right? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, let me show you why. And got it on video. What you're going to see is, and a lot of people do this, and it's not wrong, it's just inefficient. That first rep, they drop their hips way low, like into a squat position, as they're getting set. And if you watch, what actually happens is, with that first rep, they start to pull, they initiate the lift, and the hips rise to the point where the body is efficient for the deadlift now, okay? You're at that sweet spot. And then the bar moves. And then guess what? After that rep, you start hitting that position with your hips naturally. It's always that first rep for whatever reason, people are dropping their hips really low, and then the body is finding that spot where the hips are probably about 3 to 4 inches higher than that first rep that they're just dropping down into a squat for. So the main thing with the deadlift is, if you're doing conventional, you want a stance that's pretty much, if you looked at yourself in the mirror, you're slightly narrower than your legs being straight up and down from the hip, okay? Slightly narrower. Feet face forward, okay? The next tip for the deadlift is this. You want your grip to be as close as possible, narrow-wise, as close as possible to your legs as you can get it without it getting jammed up on your legs. So, say, for a 180-pound kid, his stance is going to be, and at his height, his stance is going to be inside the knurling, okay, first of all, as far as the width. And then his grip, because he's not a giant guy with giant legs and whatever, his grip is going to be just outside the smooth, so right where the knurling starts. And the reason for that is, when you see people pulling conventional and the stance is too wide, that obviously means also that the grip has to be wide. And guess what happens? The wider the grip, the more it pulls your scapula apart, okay? So it starts to weaken that upper back where you can't really set your scaps, okay? Not to mention, it's increasing the range of motion and, well, I mean, not necessarily. It's just inefficient. If you pull conventional, you want to be able to pull narrow, grip narrow, and you don't want to have that first rep be a waste, because now imagine for someone who trains that way and doesn't know what I'm talking about till they hear it right now. Say they're getting ready for a powerlifting competition, or they just want to do a 1-rep max, and their setup for their first rep when they do sets is to drop into that squat position and pull. Obviously, they have no second rep after that, okay? You got your first rep, and the deadlift is called the deadlift because it's the only lift where the lift begins with no negative portion. There's no lowering of the bar. It's dead weight, and you have to fire, and it goes. So the biggest part of the deadlift and being good, and anybody can argue with me. I've pulled fucking 800 pounds after 10 weeks of training for deadlift, after not doing it for a long time. I deadlifted 700 pounds when I was a teenager. I've pulled modified sumo. I've pulled 800 pounds conventional. You can argue with me all you want. 95% of a good deadlift is the setup. If the setup is off, the entire lift is shot. And it's because it's the deadlift. There's no negative portion, okay? When you come out on a squat and you walk out and say you brace a little weird, you start sitting back and you're not really in your optimal position, you still have room to adjust on the way down to get into that spot that when you hit the bottom and it's time to fire, you're good to go. Same thing on the bench press. You can come out and be a little weird and get your shoulders set, when you start, and then tuck your elbows a little bit more and get in that proper position as you're coming down and be able to explode and be just as strong. The deadlift, that you don't have that. If your setup is off, you're screwed, okay? Setup is everything, all right? That's all I got. And if anybody wants to learn how to deadlift, they can find me at Bull Pit Fitness Center in Tennessee, and I'll be glad to take you through it. Bye.